All right, everyone. Welcome to episode 37 of the Detroit Sports Podcast. We got a heavy stack show for everyone. This is the Doc and Jock Sports Show. Joining me is my cousin, Adam Strozinski. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. What's going on, cuz?
Oh, just trying to recover from those dead wings. I don't know about you, but they haven't showed up in 2 or 3 games. So I don't even know why we show up to do this podcast.
Are you kidding me? We got a lot to spew on this week. Adam and I are going to hit on the Red Wings, obviously. They are trailing 2-1 versus the Boston Bruins. We are going to be joined by 2 guests to talk about the series versus Boston. We're going to get the Boston perspective from Adam's bro, his boy out there, his drinking buddy, Scotty Patterson.
The guy's a maniac on the cruise ship. That's all I got to say.
And then we're going to be joined by Bryan Yates, host of NHL on the Ice on Blog Talk Radio. He'll give us his insights regarding the Boston Bruins and the Wings series. We're going to play a round of Jock Jams. I got 3 questions lined up for the Jock, and he's going to give us his great sports insight. And then finally, to end the show, Adam and I have to touch on the 30 for 30 movie that played regarding the Bad Boys. It was a great 2-hour movie, and Adam and I are going to give our thoughts regarding some issues that came about from it, and as well as some news from the Pistons this week. So, cuz, you ready to kick off this podcast?
I can't wait. I'm so excited. I especially want to talk 30 for 30 because the Wings suck right now.
Yeah, man. They have thoroughly disappointed. The Wings started off great, winning the first game 1-0 on Pavel Datsyuk's great goal late in the third period. But since then, since Jimmy Howard let in that awful clearing play where he tried to, clear the puck and Boston's automatically scooped it up and put it right back in the net. Since then is basically, you can pinpoint that was basically when the Wings lost all momentum. And since then, they've played pretty much scared. Boston's is clogging the neutral zone. We can't, basically everything's going to the outside. We are basically playing a lot of the game in our own end. Our power play is just out of sync.
Defense is suffocating. They are like white on rice.
Basically, they were just waiting for one thing to happen in their favor, and boom, they've pounced on us now the last 2 games. And do you think the Wings can get the momentum back?
No! It's going to take a lot. Really and truly, it's going to take a lot. They're going to have to play darn near flawless defense. Jimmy Howard's going to have to stand on his head. He's going to have to pull something off similar to game 1, and that offense is going to have to find a way to either get around that defense or break through and put something by Tuukka Rask. I mean, he is one of the best goalies out there right now.
Just real quickly regarding Jimmy Howard, I just kind of feel like he's peaked. I feel like this is what we're going to get. Sitting right now here, awaiting game 4, I just don't feel like, you know what, can you get 3 or 4 performances like you got in game 1? That's what it's going to take. I mean, we were spoiled. We've seen Dominic Hasek do this throughout an entire playoff run, not just one game. He basically stood on his head and was able to, just look at the first goal in game 3. That was soft.
I'm gonna fight you on this though.
That was soft. Don't tell me that.
No, it was soft. It was soft. And I don't know if Jimmy Howard is the caliber of goaltender as a Dominic Hasek or even a Chris Osgood. But here's the deal: those guys had 3 or 4 Hall of Famers in front of them at all times. This defense isn't doing him any favors. At certain points, they're hanging him out to dry. I think if you were to put Jimmy Howard on a team with a Nick Lidstrom, a Brad Stewart, a Brian Rafalski, I mean, those guys are going to the Hall of Fame. You put him on those teams, and I think they maybe win 1 or 2 more Stanley Cups. You are stupid.
What the hell is that about?
I don't know if... You know what I really feel like? I feel like Ken Holland had the magic formula, and he said, you know what? I'm going to do what everybody else is doing. I'm going to go out, I'm going to pay a goaltender $4, $5, $6 million, and we're going to do it that way. Instead of sitting there paying a goaltender $1, $2, $3 million and having a stellar defense with a great offense that back checks.
Now, I just want to make a point here. All goaltenders make mistakes, but I just think that when Jimmy Howard makes a mistake, they are very crucial and momentum swinging.
They're at the wrong time.
They're at the worst possible time, and they swing the momentum so bad. And obviously, we all know his weakness is handling the puck. You would think by now he would have improved that. I mean, because that play in Game 2 was so horrendous. You had the whole left side of the ice, and you shoot it basically right to Boston. I mean, basically, since that point, the Wings have looked lost. They've looked like they don't know what they're doing. And so, a key advantage that Boston has over us is the power play. When we go a man down and they have a power play, they are executing at a great level. Now, Cuz, in terms of the power play, do you just think maybe Babcock should consider shifting the lines around? Because we're not getting that many shots. Franzen obviously is getting in front of the net, but they're not really getting, Boston is blocking so many shots. What can we do to help this power play?
I really think they need to space out. They've got to open and create shooting lanes. If you watched Game 3, there were so many blocked shots, or when a shot finally did get through, it just kind of died right there in front of Tuukka Rask, and it was in everybody's feet, and then it just got kicked back out to either a corner or it got shot back down the ice. So I think they really need to work on their spacing. They've got to find some way to draw that defense away from being in front of Tuukka Rask. Almost go back to set it up how, if you recall how Brett Hull scored a lot of his goals as a wing. He did this little curl play where he basically found a soft spot in the zone, and they basically fed him the puck from either low in the corner or from the side, and he basically would just hit a one-timer. And it would just generate shots. Sometimes it goes in, sometimes you get a lucky bounce, and you can sit there and you can tuck a rebound away. I think if you do something like that, where you sit there and you spread that defense out, open up a shooting lane or two, and you just drive the puck at the net, and that's the best hope they have right now.
Because I just have to laugh here. You watch a game, you expect a certain level of professionalism. Have you ever seen 5 players leave the ice at the exact same time, leaving their goaltender out to dry like that? I mean, that line change was an epic fail, and obviously that stuff doesn't even happen in the preseason. Have you ever seen anything like that? That was god-awful.
You know what? Jimmy Howard must have really pissed off somebody in that locker room for something like that to happen. It's the only explanation. I mean, it makes no sense. I don't understand it.
So obviously you're continuing to believe Boston is going to take this series. I kind of think now it all hinges on tonight's Game 4. If the Wings can get back in the series, put together a 60-minute performance, and put some pucks in the net, shoot the puck on the power play, be more efficient, then yeah, this can be a series. But if Boston can come away and win Game 4 tonight, then I don't think we have a chance, and the series will be over. So what a huge game tonight. What are your thoughts about Game 4? Do we go all out? Do we put our balls on the table and win this game?
I think you get the Wings' best game tonight. What happens when you corner a rat? Rat gets his back to a wall, and he sits there and he fights and he claws and he comes out digging and scratching. So I think the Wings, you'll get their best effort tonight. I don't know if it results in a win. Just watching how good Boston is. Everybody before this series started talking about how fast they were. And it just seems like Boston has been able to match that quickness, that acceleration that Detroit has, stride for stride. Boston, we all know, is more physical, and they're just kind of laying the wood to Detroit. Detroit sat there and tried to out-hit them Game 3, and I think they did on the stat sheet, but you don't really see it in the play. It doesn't result to anything. And Tuukka Rask is probably the best goalie in the league right now. So I don't know if even Detroit's best gets them a win, but I think you will get their best tonight.
And it will behoove them to play a great game tonight because, you at least have to compete. Okay, everyone kind of expected, nationwide that Boston would play a very good series and handle us. But the Wings can compete. We all know it. They've took 3 games from Boston. And so it's not just the results, it's the execution and how they've played that has been that disappointing. And so, yes, you're right. They have to play a lot better and get more pucks to the net and put some pressure on Tuukka Rask and do something to kind of change the momentum back. 2 games now, went to Boston. Let's do something to get the momentum back and bring this series even at 2-2. Now, I'm very interested to hear the opinions of Scotty Patterson and Bryan Yates. They're our hockey insiders. They're going to give us their insight regarding the Boston series. So stay tuned. Joining us after the break, Scotty Patterson will give us his opinions on the Boston versus Wings series.
All right, Detroit Sports Podcast listeners, we have a special treat for you. We're bringing back a longtime friend of the show with his New England point of view. We've got from the great Northeast, Scotty Patterson. You can follow him on Twitter at ScottyNTCF, and you can also follow him on his blog, ntcf.wordpress.com. Scotty Patterson, what's been good, my friend?
Am I calling into Hockeytown, USA?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Hey, it's kind of hard when, you're leaving the game with 6 minutes left and you call yourself Hockeytown, USA.
Hey, now. Take it easy there. Take it easy. All
Who's
right,
coming in hot?
Let's let everybody know why you're actually calling in and why you're on here and why you're so braggadocious. For those who don't know, Scotty is a longtime Bruins fan. He's going to give us the Boston perspective of this series between the Red Wings and the Bruins. So I guess let's just jump right into this. I'm going to ask you the first question, all right? What's been your overall impression of the series thus far?
Well, after last night in the first period, I really believe that if you wanted to watch an NHL team play a high school team, that's what it looked like. The Bruins just seemed like they were skating everywhere. Dougie Hamilton walked from one end of the ice to the other and scored. He could have had 3 goals in the first period last night. I believe the game 1, the Bruins were kind of, didn't get off to the hot start or anything like that. They had a 5-day layoff, and they just didn't get the kick in the butt they needed.
So you feel that basically the Wings are, I don't know, maybe are asleep at the wheel here, or Boston is just that good that they're just rocking and rolling right now?
I'll admit, when, the matchups came out, I was nervous about the Wings because for obvious reasons. I mean, you guys have been to the playoffs 20 years in a row or something ridiculous like that.
23 and counting.
23 and counting, there you go. And the Wings are the only team to beat the Bruins 3 times this year. So that kind of stuff doesn't happen by accident. At the same time, you're without Zetterberg, which is obviously a huge loss. But I just think the Bruins are too good, too strong. They have layers upon layers of defense that once you get by Bergeron, then you're going to get by Chara. And then if you get by both of them, you're still going to get by Rask. And I just don't see that Detroit has the firepower to do so.
All right. What have the Bruins done this series that has surprised you?
Well, after last year's Stanley Cup, where I felt like I still got punched in the chest when they gave up the 2 goals in the last minute of the game, that was a heartbreaker. And for them to come back this season, I know the President's Trophy means pretty much nothing, but for them to come out and game after game still bring it and not go into like coast mode or anything like that at any point in the season. And I think a lot of that has to do with Iginla being here. Let the guys want to win him a cup. But I mean, I'm just in shock that they still put the pedal to the metal every night.
This team basically since the drop of the puck, very first game, they've been on a mission, yes?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you got to remember losing that game. I mean, if you remember last year, they were in the driver's seat, up 2-1, and the Blackhawks just came back and everyone knows what happened. But now you go and you get Iginla after he spurned you to the Penguins, and now he's back here where he should have been in the first place. Now it's time to get him a cup.
All right, Scotty, enough of this trash talking of our Wings here. Obviously, you guys have taken the momentum since Game 2 when Howard made that key mistake to let that goal in. Do you think that Jimmy Howard can raise his game up just a touch higher like he did in Game 1 to help the Wings get back in the series?
I was surprised to see how well Jimmy Howard actually played last night. The Bruins peppered him with about 30 or so shots. From the second and third period, he played really well. My problem with Jimmy Howard, I mean, I think he's a good goalie, but his playoff record kind of speaks for itself. I believe he's something like 21 and 24 in the playoffs. And, I mean, there's guys that can step up in the playoffs, and there's guys that, below 500 goalies, and Jimmy Howard isn't really scaring anybody up there.
Now, obviously, the key to Boston's success has been the power play, one of the top-ranked power plays in all of the NHL. Can you just talk a little bit about what makes the Boston Bruins power play that potent and something that should be avoided for the Wings to stay out of the penalty box?
Oh, I mean, it's got to be the puck movement. You have a guy like Torrey Krug at the blue line. Yeah, he's a little weak defensively sometimes, but he captains that power play. The puck movement between that he can, distribute the puck. You got Lucic, you got Iginla, and you got, a mountain of a man, as he's so affectionately known as all across the NHL, in Chara, standing in front of a goalie. I mean, I don't want to be Jimmy Howard with a 6'10" guy on skates in front of me and someone firing a laser at me.
So looking ahead, you think that the Bruins can wrap this up in 6 or 7 games?
I'm thinking 5.
Oh, no more wins for the Red Wings. I just think that, you know what, Scotty? I think that the Wings have kind of been shell-shocked here the last couple of games. I think you're going to get our best effort tomorrow night, and it could be a really, really close game. And I just think that, the Wings' youth is something to be talked about. We got a young team now entering their first playoff run. But I do think they have confidence against Boston. Like you said, we've won 3 games against them in the regular season. And something that obviously I think you see is that Boston is keeping all the play to the outside. The Wings are not getting consistent pressure. And I just think that if the Wings can, pepper Rask, can get more shots on net, and can convert on the power play, 0 for 9, that's kind of unheard of.
Well, speaking from when the Bruins did win the Cup and their power play was the worst in NHL history, I can understand your frustration. I think the big thing is the guy that I was really looking forward to see play was Gustav Nyquist, but it's more been like Gustav Nyquil because he hasn't really gotten anything going, and I thought his speed would be a big factor, and it just seems like the Bruins have been able to kind of isolate him and, really take away his strengths. I know you're without Alfredson and Zetterberg. Game 4 will definitely be interesting because from everything I've read, you're getting them back. So maybe it'll be a whole nother game, but I just don't see the Red Wings. They've scored 2 goals in 3 games. Rask has been playing great. The defense has been great. I just don't think you guys have the firepower to win another game.
Gustav Nyquil, come on, man. You guys have Brad Marchand over there, who's like faking injuries over there. That was pretty soft. You got to admit that, don't you think? I mean, he got hit in the right leg and tried to fake that his other leg was injured, and everyone on Twitter caught that, and I know you did too. That was pretty weak.
Hey, man, it's one of the things that I think that you guys are actually kind of lacking. You need a pest like that. I mean, we have Marchand. We love him because he is that guy that is a little irritant guy. It's the same way that I hate P.K. Subban. It's the same way that I hated Danny Carcillo when he was with Philly. The same way I hated Alexander Burrows in Vancouver. There's always that one pet. Andrew Shaw last year. Marchand's Oz and Marchand's awesome.
You're right on the mark there with Brad Marchand. Thus far, 3 games in, who do you think has been the MVP for Boston?
Has to be Tuukka. He's made some outstanding saves that I can't wrap my head around how he can get his body in position to save the puck. He's been fortunate to have the Chara in front of him, Bergeron, and just a solid all-around game plan, but it has to be Tuukka Rask without a question.
What do you think Detroit can do better to frustrate Boston? Is it just as simple as getting to Tuukka, or should they, maybe get a little bit more physical with your offense?
I don't know if getting more physical would benefit Detroit because that is Boston's game. You guys are booing Milan Lucic every time he touches the puck, but it's because I feel like you guys respect him but hate. It's a respectful hate. I think Detroit needs someone that will get under the Bruins' skin and get them out of their game. Marchand's easy to irritate in that regard. Lucic is easy to irritate in that regard. If you get under their skin, you might be able to kind of cause some kind of problems, but I really don't see it happening.
So there's nothing the Wings can do. It's just as simple as Boston's that good. Just got to ride it out, huh?
If you remember, I was giving you guys a lot of credit during the Tigers-Red Sox series, saying that, it was going to be interesting what happened when you pitch it and stuff like that. I was a little scared at that time. Then I remembered you had a 350-pound first baseman and everything was fine. But in this regard, the Bruins are I think they're a wagon. And, I've never done this before, but I'm kind of looking at the Montreal series right now.
What the hell is that about?
Oh, we don't play that.
Wow. That's, I think those might be fighting words. We might have to have me and you might have to have a dust up at center ice here, brother.
That would show more life than what Detroit has shown the last 2 games, Adam. So, you can bring it on.
You're not holding back. You're just taking cheap shot after cheap shot. I like this. This is fun.
You gotta do it. When you're this confident, you're watching what I've been watching. Come on, man. 2 goals in 3 games, and, one of them was nasty by Datsuk. That was sick. He picked that spot, and Tuukka was blinded, but that was a sick goal.
You know what? I would love to fight you on all of this, but the Wings have been soft. They look like Jell-O out there, so I'm going to let you slide on a whole bunch of this, and I'm not even going to bother sticking up for my Wings because they do look that bad right now. That being said, is there any part of what the Red Wings do that scares you at all? Any bit of their style of play that bothers you or maybe strikes a little bit of fear in your black and yellow heart?
Well, like 23 years in a row, and I like Babcock. I think he's aggressive. I think he's an interesting coach, and between Babcock and I think just Pavel Datsuk, but I just don't think you guys have the guys around Datsuk to really get anything going. Did you see the pass last night that he put between his legs with his back to everybody and there was no one in front of the net?
Yep.
So, Datsuk can create, but there's no one else around to help him out.
I agree with you. This looks like it's going to be a bloodletting here. I think John was right, though. You're going to probably get our best game tomorrow night. Their back's against the wall, and you know what happens when you corner a rat. It gets cagey.
For your sake, I hope so, because if we don't get your best, then, everything that I'm saying tonight comes to fruition. Sure. And I hope that we get your best.
No, I think you will, and in the end, I sat there, I picked Boston in 7. So I think you have every right to look forward to that Montreal series. Montreal's been on a roll, for those who don't know, for at least the past 2 weeks leading up into the playoffs, and Montreal has looked scary at times this season. So with that being said, Scotty, I appreciate your time. I miss you greatly. I need to get with you. We need to hang out. And I don't know, hopefully we can have you back on here again.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't see it being the Celtics-Pistons thing anytime soon. It might be another 20 years for that. But, hey, maybe Sox Tigers again.
Hey, did you see any of that 30 for 30 with the Detroit Pistons?
No, I didn't. I wanted to sit down and watch that, though. I mean, those guys were, they were the bad boys for a reason, and that must have been awesome to see.
Hey, you know what? It was good. It kind of broke my heart a little bit, and I know me and John are going to touch on it a little bit later on in this show, but, yeah, most definitely, man. If you get a chance, check it out. Brought back tears to see those old Celtic teams.
One of the best quotes up here, if I may say, there was a famous announcer named Johnny Most, and he was like the voice of the Celtics. And every time something happened with the Pistons, it'd be like, he is like talking about Bill Lambert in the deepest Boston accent you can imagine. He is a villain. He's McNasty. And he would just start screaming and yelling about how like you guys are like convicts. It was great.
Hi there, sport fans. This is Johnny Most reporting for the Boston Celtics.
And we're starting to see the bang-bang stuff now. Rodman is all over Bird.
And there is a violent knockdown by Lambert. Oh, my. A completely unnecessary foul by Lambert, and he has the audacity to complain about something. They have been called a dirty ball club, and I can see why. This is a typical disgusting display by Rodman, Lambert, and Isiah Thomas. The yellow, gutless way they do things here.
They were one of the teams that sat there and they dethroned your Celtics, dethroned the Showtime Lakers, and they basically helped create what ended up becoming Michael Jordan. So, I don't know, that was
absolutely.
a great team.
And that was when I could tolerate Isiah Thomas. So.
All right, brother. I'm going to let you go. For those who don't know, you can follow Scotty on Twitter at ScottyNTCF. Check out his blog, ntcf.wordpress.com. NTCF stands for Not the Common Fan. And Scotty Patterson, you're not the common fan, and the Detroit Sports Podcast appreciates your insight.
Thanks, guys. Nice catching up with you, and good luck the rest of the way.
Take it easy, brother.
Bye-bye.
Man, cause Scotty brought the pain this time. He was a little bit more nasty than the first time he was on the show.
He's drinking that golden black Kool-Aid out there in Boston right now. That guy, you can tell. He wears his Bruin heart on his sleeve.
He brought the Gustav NyQuil blast. I mean, I like that. That was pretty good, Scotty. Good job. Listen, Adam and I, we love doing this podcast because we get a chance to talk to guys outside of Detroit. And Scotty, with that Boston accent, definitely brings his opinion. And hopefully, he did a better job than the first time he was on the show.
I could listen to that guy say Vancouver all day long.
All right, stay tuned. We're gonna have Bryan Yates on after the break to talk about his opinions regarding Boston versus the Wings, and I think he'll be more favorable to the Wings. Stay tuned. All right, fans of the Detroit Sports Podcast, joining us. He is the host of the NHL on the Ice program on Blog Talk Radio, Sunday evenings at 7 o'clock. Bryan Yates. You can find his website at NHLontheice.com. He's here to talk the Wings versus the Bruins. Bryan, how are you tonight?
I am great, guys. How are you?
Oh, man, it's always a fun time. The NHL playoffs are here. Bryan, the Wings took the momentum early in Game 1, stealing it 1-0. Then the next two games have just been awful. The Wings haven't played anywhere near the level that they played in Game 1. What has your take been so far on the series with the Wings trailing 2-1?
Well, it's been a mixed bag of feelings in this series because, you had a great Game 1 where the Wings come out, and it was an epic battle, with the Bruins and the Wings. And that game went back and forth, and Jimmy Howard came up huge with some big saves and actually stole Game 1. And Dantzler with a magic goal, getting a pass 6 feet from behind him, through 3 guys, through another 2 guys, and scoring. And, you had that feeling, all right, we can hang with these guys. But games 2 and games 3 were totally different. The Red Wings defense has been absolutely horrible. They can't score on the power play. Their penalty kill has been awful, taking bad penalties, not being able to score, not getting any momentum, towards the net to get goals. And when they do, they shoot themselves in the foot with just stupid penalties.
Bryan, let's talk a little bit about Jimmy Howard. As everyone here in Detroit knows, the two toughest jobs are quarterback for the Lions and goaltender for the Red Wings. Now, Jimmy Howard last year signed an extension. People kind of were up in arms. He showed a little bit of what his potential could be in Game 1 by stealing that game, but the biggest knock on him has been handling the puck and consistency. And as shown by his huge mistake in Game 2, by letting in that, by skating out and not passing the puck to the left, he shot the puck right to Boston, and they scored a goal. And that obviously took all the momentum away from the Red Wings, and it was obvious. It basically sucked the life out of them. Do you think that Jimmy Howard is the guy, and can he steal another game for us or raise his level of consistency in this series?
Well, there's just evidence of a goalie trying to do too much. He felt upon himself that, hey, look, I did all I could in Game 1. I stole Game 1. Let me see if I can do and try to help more. And I think he tried too hard instead of just doing what he does. He gave up a horrible goal, the first goal. Do I think he's able to win this series? Yes. I mean, he's shown that he was able to win the series against the Ducks last year when they were the underdogs. He was very composed, very focused last season. Even in the Blackhawks series when they were up 3-1, I thought, even though they ended up losing that series, I thought he still played great for the whole series. I thought a lot of last year's was the defense letting him down. It's just evident of a goalie trying to do too much, and like I said, the defense isn't helping him any as well. The penalty kill has been absolutely horrible, and I still feel like he can carry this team to a victory in the series.
Bryan, is Boston really this good, or is this more an example of the Wings just not playing well?
Well, this team didn't win the President's Trophy for nothing. This is a very well put together team. Claude Julien has done a heck of a job with this team. I mean, Patrice Bergeron, he's a potential Selke trophy winner.
Bergeron!
Zdeno Chara, potential Norris trophy winner for best defenseman. You got guys like Jerome McGinley, Louis Eriksson, Brad Marchand, Milan Lucic, David Krejcik. This is a team with a lot of beef, and it's a very well put together team. Very strong, very physical. You had breakout stars on this team like Riley Smith. It's a really good team. This was my team that I picked to win the Stanley Cup prior to the season, and I believe this team is once it gets going, you can see it happen like last year when they rolled through all the way up to the Stanley Cup Finals against the Blackhawks.
What do you think the Wings can do differently to get control of this series and at least make it interesting? Because the last two games really have been anything but.
Well, it needs to start with their physical play. Physical play along the boards, in the trenches. This team needs to be physical. They need to win the battles for the puck. Better shots, quality shots, more shots. They need to get more traffic, and mostly just being physical.
What do you think that? But let's nerd out here a little bit. Let's kind of get geeky. You're a hockey guy. I'm a hockey guy. We both love this sport and we're both passionate about it. So let's kind of geek out here. In the game last night, the Wings just looked like they were suffocated by Boston's defense. It looked like they were just all over them. They couldn't move, especially right out in front of the net. You really seen this on the power play when the Wings were trying to score and really pressuring in the third period. What can Detroit do to try to, I don't know, I guess maybe get more spacing, kind of break up that suffocation from that Boston defense?
Well, it comes down that you have to win face-offs in your zone, and once you win face-offs, you need a breakout. And it's their breakout. I mean, if you look, their face-off percentage is only 47%. It's not that good. Other teams that are even out of the playoffs, like Tampa Bay's out of the playoffs, their face-offs win percentage is 51%. LA, who's down 3 games to none, their win percentage is 52%. But I think it all comes down winning faceoffs, being able to break out of your zone, and getting quality shots on Tuukka Rask. Because, Tuukka Rask, we talk about trophies, Vezina, candidate right here in Tuukka Rask. I mean, this team is stacked. So you need to you need to go back and look at what you did successful against this team during the regular season. You won 3 out of 4 games in the regular season. Go back and take a look what you did successful and start from the basics and go from there.
Now, Bryan, there's been talk about the return of Henrik Zetterberg. A lot of talk, maybe he could show up for Game 7. Have you heard anything about Henrik Zetterberg in terms of when he could return and maybe help us out?
Well, Zetterberg did fill in today on Dasuk's line. Dasuk was not at practice due to the birth of his first child. Babcock was vague on whether he might play tomorrow. Says if he's ready, he'll go. So it's all on Zetterberg. If Zetterberg says, hey, I'm ready to go tomorrow, he'll be in that lineup. And that could be a huge spark for the Red Wings right there to having their captain back in that lineup.
All right, Bryan. Now, the Wings' power play has just been horrendous. 0 for 9, as opposed to what we see with Boston with the, beautiful passing and the crisp execution of their power play, and that's really hurt us. What can Babcock do, or what can the Wings do to maybe shake up the power play in order to become more efficient? Because obviously they're not getting, they're not shooting the puck enough. They're not getting enough traffic in front of Tuukka Rask. What can they do maybe, or what's been going on with this power play?
They got to win faceoffs. They got to win faceoffs in Boston's zone when they're on the power play, and then you can go from there. The shots from the point are getting through, so I believe you have to get the puck down low to try and beat this team. From the top of the circles, down low, you got to battle in the trenches, battle out front. You just got to get more traffic and more shots on net, but it all starts with winning faceoffs in Boston's zone.
Now, Babcock, I think I read a report today, brought back Ouellette from Grand Rapids. What does he add to the team? Why do you think they made that move?
Not sure if he's going to play. He actually, let's see, the defensive pairs were Ouellette, Smith, DeKaiser, Quincy, Lashoff, and Kindle. No Cronwall on the defensive pairs, so I don't know if it was a maintenance day or what, but I think Ouellette was just added just for depth.
For this team, you said Zetterberg could come back and kind of lift them with a little bit of a spark. Is there anything that can be done on the ice that can basically spark this team? Something like a hit, maybe a fight, anything that can kind of motivate this team? Do you see anything that will just kind of uplift this team and make them play better?
Well, it all starts with the captain on the defensive end, which is Nicholas Cronwall. Nicholas Cronwall's play has to be a lot better. If he could just, throw a Cronwall hit, if you're battling, you're down 1-0, you're tied 0-0, a hit can turn the tide of a game. It gives you spark, give you energy. Another thing is the fourth line. I'm talking Glenn Denning, Drew Miller, and whoever else they throw, Joachim Anderson or whoever else. These guys need to put the spark in the Red Wings series. When you come to the playoffs, you need to be able to roll 4 lines, and that's a must if you're going to win the Stanley Cup. You got to roll 4 lines. And your fourth line needs to be your energy, your physical line. Throw a hit, do something to get the spark going, and that spark has not been there in games 2 or 3.
3 games into this series, who do you think's been the biggest disappointment for the Red Wings?
The games 2 and 3, it's got to be the Red Wings defense. I'm not putting it all on Howard's shoulders because Howard gets his fair share of criticism, but he doesn't get his fair share of compliments either. And all the forwards. I mean, Tatar, Nyquist, Franzen. Franzen's been a huge disappointment. Abdicator, a huge disappointment. These are your leaders of your team. They need to step up and get some goals.
With 2 games left and possibly 4 if this goes to 7, how do you see this series ending?
I'd like to say the Red Wings have enough to win this series, but I think they're just going to come up a little bit short. I think Boston is just too physical and just too gifted on the forward end for the Red Wings to be able to beat them. I have to go with Boston, and I'm still going with 7, but I think Boston pulls this out.
Bryan, we appreciate it. We enjoyed your time on the Detroit Sports Podcast. I know our listeners appreciated it. Can you tell our listeners where they can find you on Twitter and plug your website for us?
Well, you can find us on Facebook at NHL on the Ice Podcast. You can find us on Twitter at NHL on _the_ice. Also, you can find us on our website, NHLontheice.com. You can find all of our podcasts there. A lot of great guests we've had on recently. So come on over and check us out.
Awesome. Thank you, Bryan. We really appreciate it. We look forward to talking to you real soon. Hopefully the Wings make it to round 2, and we'll have you back on.
Guys, I appreciate it a lot, and thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much, guys.
Yep.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Bryan.
Oh man, I want to thank Bryan for coming on our podcast. You can listen again to NHL on the Ice every Sunday on Blog Talk Radio at 7 o'clock. He does a great show regarding hockey. They got a lot of good guests. I just want to say thanks to Bryan for sticking with us regarding our difficulties. That was really cool, Bryan. We really appreciate it, and we appreciate your insights. So, because we are expanding our family here in the podcast, a lot of friends of the show, and that's why we love doing this podcast, is that we get to talk to people that love sports and love breaking down the key moments in the key playoff series. So that was great, Bryan. Thank you very much.
Really great guests this week too. Scotty from Boston and Bryan from the Detroit area gave great perspective, nice and balanced. So great guests, great insight. I don't know what else you can ask for.
All right, everyone, we are going to play a round of Jock Jams. Cuz, you ready?
Oh, I'm strapped up and ready to go.
All right, cuz with the NBA season now heading into the playoffs, lots of talks have been kind of going around regarding who is going to be taking over some of the head coaching vacancies. Well, Rick Adelman stepped down in Minnesota. In management is Flip Saunders. He is kind of developing a knack for letting out his thoughts regarding who he wants to replace, Rick Adelman. And the name that popped up and the name that's kind of been circulating is Tom Izzo. Now, Izzo's been kind of a hot commodity for a long time for all his work at Michigan State. As you know, I'm a Spartan guy. I appreciate everything that he's done at Michigan State. He's also been rumored to take the Pistons job. Just your thoughts on the rumors regarding Izzo going to Minnesota, and would you think that's a better fit than the Pistons?
I think they're in a better position to win now as opposed to the Pistons. The Pistons, it's disjointed. It's kind of a mess with that front office. As far as Izzo leaving Michigan State, I don't think he leaves unless he gets general manager carte blanche. I don't think he leaves unless he gets to make personnel decisions. So I think he stays at MSU. I think he'll entertain the offer. I think he'll listen. I think he likes that. Plus, I think that makes him look better, especially to recruits. He's got some ties to the NBA, and on top of everything great that he does at MSU, it just looks better on his resume. This guy is the talk of the town whenever a coaching vacancy pops up. I don't think he leaves MSU. I think if he had to pick between Detroit and Minnesota, Minnesota would be the way to go, just because they're constructed a little bit more solidly than the Pistons are right now. We're not really even sure what the Pistons are going to do with this roster next year. So if I was Izzo, I'd stay at MSU. And if I had to pick between NBA teams, I'd probably go Minnesota.
All right. I'm definitely, I agree with you 100%. He should stay at Michigan State, because if he leaves, you're going to have one little sad Doc sitting on this chair doing this podcast. All right, cuz the Tigers lost now 2 games to the White Sox. They lost yesterday 6-4, kind of ruining Smiley's performance. A lot of the talk has been now about Phil Koch. Why are they parading Phil Koch out there game after game? Even with a 5-run lead, it's not safe. And I put a question out there yesterday on Twitter regarding Phil Koch in terms of his rank in terms of relievers. Just in your opinion, where does Phil Koch rank in terms of the awful relievers that the Tigers have had in the recent past?
That's a tough one. There's been some really bad ones, some real shaky ones. I mean, you've got Jose Valverde. He was bad for a while there. You had Todd Jones. He was scary as hell. You got Phil Koch. Who else? Who am I missing here? I know I'm missing 1 or 2 here.
Did you say Fernando Rodney?
I forgot Fernando. All right, and Joel Zumaya never stay healthy. He wasn't a closer, but he was still coming out of that bullpen. How I would rank it. I would rank Jose Valverde number 1 because he would legitimately blow you games. Like, he would just go up there and he'd give up like 7-run home runs. I didn't even know you could score 7 runs with a home run, but he would give up 7-run home runs. He just figured out a way. So I'd go Jose Valverde. Then I'd go Todd Jones, because Todd Jones would cause you a heart attack. He might not blow the game, and he did blow his fair share, but he might not blow the game, but he would make it really interesting. He was called the roller coaster for a reason. Then I'd probably go Phil Koch. Then I'd probably go Fernando Rodney. I'd probably put Joel Zmaya there. That'd probably be my top 5. So he's right there in the middle, and he's in the mix.
Are you in agreement that probably I don't think Phil Koch's going to last the rest of the year?
I don't.
How much they're giving him so much leeway? It's unbelievable. Just being a left-handed reliever gives you that much leeway. Oh my gosh!
I really don't think it's
time.
Because I don't really think it's because they're giving him this leeway. I don't think they have anything else to bring up and sub him in with. I think you're stuck with him right now. I mean, seriously, look for Dave Dombrowski to make a trade coming up shortly if he can't get his situation figured out. I really think Phil Koch has lost it, but I don't think they have anything in the minors that they can bring up and that they can plug in right now. Or if there's anything out there that they want to plug in for a situational lefty because they don't want to damage him. You got to remember, when you rush talent up, you sit there and you really retard their growth unless they're ready for it. So I don't think they want to sit there and they don't want to rush anybody up. I think he's out there basically because we don't have anybody else. There's nothing else we can do.
Now, yesterday was a great day for NFL fans. The schedule came out. So you and I kind of got to, look over the schedule. We kind of got to see the Lions are opening the season on Monday Night Football versus the Giants. How great is that? I think it's the first time ever they're going to open the season on Monday night. So we're going to get a quick chance to see how they come out and play for new head coach Jim Caldwell. Just your general opinion of the schedule. Do you like the way it shapes up for the Lions? You and I kind of briefly talked about it. I just, everyone does it. It is too early, but just looking at it as is, I think 7-9 just based on that schedule. We're not going to be like everyone out there that does game by game. I mean, come on, we're not going to do that right now. I want to get your quick opinion on the Lions schedule that came out and your thoughts just based on what you saw today.
As constructed right now, I think they're a 7-9, 8-8 type team with that schedule. A lot will change, especially with the draft, and we can see kind of what they fulfill as far as needs through the draft. And I don't know, they might make another free agency move. Who knows? I mean, I don't even think we have a kicker at this point. So who really knows? But 7-9, 8-8, somewhere right in that ballpark. I don't see us making the playoffs, and I don't see a Super Bowl in the near future, so we'll kind of go with that, and we'll leave it there for right now.
All we can say, it's going to be a long season. Oh, man, and you got to remember this season, too, the Lions play in London versus the Falcons. So not only
that's
can the
a home
Lions,
game, too, isn't it?
No, the Ford family would not let that happen because, I believe it's Atlanta's home game because the Ford family did not want to give up a home game. So I believe, if you want to look it up, but I believe that it's the Falcons' home game because the Lions didn't want to give that up. So not only do the Lions get to sully their reputation locally,
but internationally too.
Internationally,
awesome.
So you know what? Around that time and maybe before then, we'll introduce the podcast fans to our fan in London. We want to give you a shout out. He listens every week, and I know he's a big Lions fan. I just hope that when they go over there, they don't go over there and just lay an egg and play awful and expose what we see here in Detroit every week internationally. Good job, cuz.
He was one of our original listeners. I just want to point that out real quick.
Coming up, we are going to talk about the 30 for 30 movie that aired last week and get our reactions to what we saw and some of the issues that came about. Stay tuned. Welcome back, everyone, to the Detroit Sports Podcast, the Doc and Jock Sports Show. Everyone out there, thank you for your support. The support of our website has been excellent. We really appreciate it. For all things related to Detroit sports, visit www.detroitsportspodcast.com. You can get everything you need related to Detroit sports in terms of sports gear, in terms of sports memorabilia, tickets to all events in the area, Wings, Pistons, Lions, Tigers, any sporting event that takes place here in the state of Michigan, you can find tickets via our website. Thank you for your support. Visit our website. Don't pay full price for everything. There's always great deals on the website. Check it out daily, and Adam and I write blogs, and we are dedicated to all things Detroit sports. 24/7 deals, www.detroitsportspodcast.com. Now, cuz switching gears, last week the 30 for 30 movie came out, and boy, I sat back and I thought, wow, I pretty much know the story, but a couple wrinkles came out that I did not even know about, that I learned about. The whole issue with Isiah Thomas and Dennis Rodman that sparked a national outcry. Just imagine if that would have happened today, when Dennis Rodman said that, the only reason that Larry Bird was all hype was because he was white. And then they took that to Isiah Thomas, and he kind of supported his teammate and reiterated it. Because, in the NBA Finals, Larry Bird and Isiah Thomas had to have a press conference to kind of quiet that down. And so I was like, wow, the Bad Boys era was not only uniting on the basketball court in terms of changing, a style of play to a little bit more nasty, but it was about, building a franchise, from the ground up. And that's how kind of the evolution of the NBA is. There were great teams like the Lakers, the Celtics, and the Pistons kept knocking on the door, starting with the pick of Isiah Thomas. And some of the other wrinkles that came out was Isiah Thomas and Rick Mahorn didn't really want to be in Detroit. Isiah Thomas comes out and is like, you know what? I sat in the interview and just gave BS answers to the GM. And Jack McCloskey was like, yeah, so what? If you're there, I'm taking you. So kudos to Jack McCloskey for seeing through the BS and taking Isiah Thomas, because obviously he was a cornerstone of the bad boy era. Rick Mahorn was a little bit delayed in terms of accepting coming to Detroit. And a lot of people said, well, you know what? Maybe Ndamukong Suh is doing kind of the same thing. Kind of just like doesn't really want to be here. And that's why he's skipping all these workouts and things like that. He just kind of wants to do whatever so that he can, be shipped along. But at the same time, it realized that, a group of men came together and they reached a common goal and won the NBA title. And, my opinion was great is that they amped up the drama between Isiah Thomas and Adrian Dantley. Boy, Adrian Dantley, for the most part, came off okay. He could have been a lot more nasty and a lot more rude in terms of his interview, because he said it afterwards. I didn't want to do the interview. I didn't want to be part of it. I didn't win no championships. For those that forget, he got traded for Mark Aguirre. All credit to Mark Aguirre. He was great. He just comes out and is like, boom. I was a better player than Adrian Dantley, period. And so the whole movie was riveting. I was on the edge of my seat the whole 2 hours. I loved it. Every part about that movie was positive for me. I just wish we got, now in my mind, I want some more 30 for 30s. I want to see 30 for 30, 98 wings in terms of their relationship with Konstantinov and how they rallied around that accident that happened in 97. I just want to see more specials like that dedicated to Detroit. Because we do this podcast. Detroit has so many great sports stories that I left after that movie ended wanting more. I just wanted to see more movies like that. It was so great. What was your take on the movie?
Initially, after watching it, I felt sad for those Pistons teams. I feel as though they're the forgotten team. They sat there and they had the misfortune of battling what basically saved the NBA, which was the Showtime Lakers and those Boston Celtic teams, and then they had the Jordan era, and they just happened to be sandwiched right in the middle of all that, and they're almost forgotten. I mean, they helped dismantle the Showtime Lakers and kill off the Celtic Birds, and then they helped construct what turned out to be Jordan. In the midst of all that, Isiah doesn't get the respect he deserves. Joe Dumars doesn't get the respect he deserves. Dennis Rodman, even though he went on to be kind of a fruitcake, and there's a reason he went on to be a fruitcake, and they slightly touched on it in that movie, he doesn't get the respect he deserves. Those guys, as a whole, don't get the respect they deserve, and I feel sorry for them, and it kind of pisses me off because it's almost like they just get lumped into like this hole, and nobody ever really discusses them or talks about them. As far as Isiah and Adrian Dantley go, it was Isiah's team. Isiah was the one who was drafted, and the team was built and constructed around Isiah. Dantley was traded for, brought in, and he was a great piece because at the time he was a guy who could make his own shot and score his own basket. As far as Mark Aguirre and Adrian Dantley goes, if you look, basketballreference.com does a really good job, and they do this stat that kind of goes a little bit more in depth, and it's the shares of wins that you help contribute to. Adrian Dantley blows out Mark Aguirre. The thing that was cool about Mark Aguirre was Mark Aguirre knew his place. Mark Aguirre was a team-first guy. And that is what Isiah Thomas talks about as being the secret to winning a basketball championship. It's not about just being good on the court. You got to be a family in that locker room. And that was the one thing I really took out of this documentary, is that they were a family. Mark Aguirre looked at Dennis Rodman and said, "You need to play." Dennis Rodman, they were drawing up a play in there. Dennis Rodman's like, "Are you sure you want me to take that basket? Shouldn't Mark be out there?" And Mark came over, tapped him on the shoulder, was like, "You're it. You're gonna make it. Go do it." I mean, they were a family. They were a group of men who came together for one common goal, and they loved each other. It was great to see. It was actually really touching, and I got choked up like 10 times watching the damn thing.
Now, the thing that kind of was a little bit touchy was, did Isiah Thomas have a hand in Adrian Dantley leaving? Now, no general manager is ever going to come out and say, yes, I met with Isiah and he said, ship this man out. But any general manager that's worth a damn has a good feel for what's going on with the team. And so maybe it wasn't said directly like trade him, but it's pretty much known that Isiah Thomas probably frequently met with Jack McCloskey and let his feelings be known. So obviously, in terms of the big picture, no, he probably didn't go to him and say directly, I want him out. But when you have talks with someone, you can get a sense of what's going on with the team. And so chemistry-wise, Adrian Dantley had to go. He couldn't put down his ego. He couldn't check his ego at the door. And as a result, he got traded the season the Pistons won the NBA title. How stinging is that? I mean, that would leave a mark for me in terms of just feeling so angry and frustrated. And, Adrian Dantley's still coming out and calling Isiah Thomas a con man and still has a lot of pent-up frustration. And I just don't think that situation is ever going to be resolved. And then another thing, probably a moment that choked you up, brought tears to your eyes, was when just the day of the parade, when they're celebrating, Rick Mahorn gets taken away.
Dude, he was crying during the interview.
He got
all choked up. He had tears in his eyes. Like, he didn't want to leave. Like, he came in overweight, said, I'm not working out. Came in fat and sloppy, and that guy left a Detroit Piston. Like, yeah. I am a Piston to the core. So much so that he ended up moving back here after he got traded. Now lives in the state. I think he lives in Rochester Hills, to be matter of fact. And he's part of the Pistons broadcast now. And we'll talk about that in a little bit here. Amazing how a guy who didn't want to be here and then has acclimated himself to the city, to the state, and now lives here with his family.
And now, the toughest part about watching that was kind of the undertone of the bad boy era. It was kind of put out there by Michael Jordan and by the league that this style of play shouldn't have happened. And so the Pistons' bad boys were outsiders. And so they didn't get the respect and credit that they deserved because they were looked at as rebels. And then what happened was, instead of passing the torch to the Bulls, they showed no class in terms of leaving the court before they got pretty much blown out, I think swept by the Bulls. And at the end of the game, the Pistons did not stick around to congratulate Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen for advancing. The Bulls struggled with the Pistons year after year in similar fashion that the Pistons struggled with the Lakers and the Celtics. And so Bill Laimbeer came out and said that he orchestrated the whole thing. I just think that had they not done that, if they had just shown a little bit of class, then I think that they would have been thought of nationally in a much different light. Now that time has passed, more people are appreciative of that style of basketball just due to the fact that basketball now is god-awful. I mean, we're clamoring for basketball. We're all clamoring for it. Everyone's like, man, this era of basketball is awful. The fundamentals are terrible. And so, yes, this movie, I think, was brought about to give more respect to a team that contended for several titles before they won it and then won 2 NBA titles. And so, it was very true. They were exhausted. They had nothing left to give. And full credit to the bad boy era. They came in and left their mark. They didn't cow down to the establishment. They took what they wanted. And it was great. It was a great, great feature movie. And all in all, it was good. And for us here in Detroit, we knew about it. And it's always good to renew your appreciation for something, especially now that the Pistons are awful. All right, cuz.
Hold on. I'm going to stop you right now. Mm-hmm. As far as the walk-off goes, because I totally disagree with you. As far as the walk-off goes, was it a black mark on their spot in history? Sure, if you want to look at it that way. I say, fuck it, though. Embrace it. Jordan was a whiny bitch. If you go back and you look at what he said and the way he said it and everything that he did leading up to that Game 4, he was a whiny little bitch.
Yeah, I think
that was what made Jordan the number one enemy, because he cried, he whined, he didn't get his way. And then he went on to be something magnificent, and he went on to be awesome. And everybody probably says he's the best player in the NBA ever to strap on a pair of tennis shoes. So I say, screw it, embrace it, thumb your nose at Jordan, thumb your nose at the league, and all that BS that went along with it, and just roll out into the sunset. Accept that. And you're absolutely right. The NBA is whack now. I can't stand watching the NBA.
So you think that, okay, but look at it this way. Michael Jordan became NBA royalty. So he had the influence to do a lot of damage to the Pistons. I mean,
yeah,
that story's never been come out, but
it's
he
because David Stern and Jordan got into bed together. They sat there, greased each other up with baby oil, rolled around, had intercourse, and did what they did.
Yeah.
And basically, Jordan came out wearing a crown.
Yeah, because he's bringing the dollars to the NBA. And so then he had the power to keep Isiah off an Olympic team. So that story, I wish they kind of would have asked more about that.
I wish they would have went into that.
Yeah,
That'd
asked
been
them.
great.
Maybe they did, and that just didn't make the cutting room floor. But yeah, Michael Jordan had a lot of bad things to say about Detroit, and that had a lot to do with why they walked off the court. But you don't do that. You pass the torch. They beat you fair and square. You beat them. So you don't do that kind of stuff. And so that obviously puts more focus on the Pistons as being rebels, and that's why they didn't get the respect that they were due.
Embrace the nastiness.
Yeah, they did it. It's obviously they did it, but looking back on it, they said it. They admit it. They shouldn't have done it, and you needed to show more class, and especially with guys like Joe Dumars and Isiah Thomas, who were outside of basketball, were very classy individuals outside of the court. So now, this week, Pistons made some news. They are jumping ship from 97.1. 97.1 FM, the ticket, previously had all 4 sporting events on their station. And so that caused a lot of conflict in terms of where they got shifted around and things like that. The Pistons broke away. They are now on 105.1, Detroit Sports 105.1. And that sparked off some kind of talk maybe that what's going to happen in a year or two when the Wings and Tigers contract comes up, because they're kind of a package deal. So the bidding war between those two stations could be very high. So the Pistons are going to be on 105.1. Obviously, I think right now they're at their lowest point, so not too many people listened. So obviously 97.1 kind of was not too disappointed to lose the Pistons. So
do you realize that 79 out of 82 of their games were broadcast on the parent station, which was 97.1? The other 3 games were broadcasted on like 9:50 a.m. So I don't understand, if you're the Pistons, what you're bent out of shape about or what you're pissed about. I'm sure there was a bidding war, and I'm sure that more money came from 105.1, which will probably help cement them in what they're trying to do, because God knows that they need the help. So I get that, but I don't know. I don't. Whatever. I mean, I don't think this is any sweat off a 97.1 sack.
Right.
I think this just kind of helps them, as long as they don't lose. Here's the deal. This is the way it goes. Lions bring the most money, and then probably the Tigers, and then the Red Wings, and then the Pistons are very, very huge fall off from those 3. And you're right. The other 2, the Tigers and the Wings, are a package deal. So those 2, there will be a bidding war, because if you can get 3 out of the 4, you essentially own the monopoly. So you get those 2, it'll be crazy in the next year.
Yeah, so look for that. It's going to be interesting. Stay tuned. Yeah, and it's just like I said, tough, because the Pistons were in a tough situation this year with the season they had, and obviously if your team's not winning and the interest is down, then the coverage that you provide, all those shows you provide, nobody listens to. So everyone's pretty much a Lions and Tigers fan, and so we're all patiently waiting for the next general manager to be hired and who is going to be the next head coach. Because what are your thoughts on potentially, some ex-NBA players taking over? I don't see that happening in terms of maybe Grant Hill or a Chauncey Billups taking over the job. I just think that Tom Gores is going to look for someone that has experience. Possibly the name that's kind of rolling around a lot is Scott Perry, because he's got some ties here from Orlando. That's the name I think that's going to fit this mold. I don't think that Tom Izzo is going to be the head coach. I just think that Lionel Hollins is a perfect fit to come here and to come in and coach the team and get quick improvements. But, do they make a splash? Do they bring in someone that maybe gets fired from these playoffs? Do they maybe wait and see? Maybe if Chicago gets bounced out, maybe Chicago's coach Thibodeau gets fired. Maybe if Mark Jackson is not happy in Golden State, a lot of people are saying he may be in line to coach the Knicks if Steve Kerr doesn't take the job. But, maybe some coaches out there that get fired from these playoffs might be available. So hopefully
Frank Vogel.
Yeah,
Just
Frank,
saying.
Just saying. Be patient. Exactly. So let's hope for Indiana to lose to Atlanta in the first round, and maybe Frank Vogel could fall in our lap. But right now, the confidence is at an all-time low with management, with the Pistons, in terms of what they're gonna do. But this season was so horrible. It's just it's unbelievable how fast and how sustained this decline has been.
Here's the deal. I hope that it's not. I like Grant Hill, but I hope it's not Grant Hill, and I hope it's not Chauncey Billups. If we go back to
and
another player,
another
GM,
name, no Kiki Vandeweghe. Keep that out of here.
No, get out of here. I hope not. I hope they get somebody who has experience running a front office, doing what they're supposed to do as a GM. I don't care if they were an assistant GM beforehand, but somebody who has front office experience. I don't care if you want to bring Chauncey Billups and Grant Hill in and you want them to do some kind of front office job, but don't make them the GM. Don't let them make the decision, especially not at this point in their career. They have too many ties to too many different guys still in the league. So what ends up happening is they end up making decisions with their heart instead of their head, and that just leads you down a bad road, and you don't want to end up there. Plus, they don't necessarily understand the landscape from a front office perspective. So I would hate to see Grant Hill and Chauncey Billups or any other former player, Isiah Thomas, please no, not Isiah Thomas. None of those. I don't want to see any of those guys. Just get somebody here who has GM experience, whether it be an assistant GM or a regular GM. I don't care. And then get a coach here who has some type of coaching experience and support him and give him what he needs to win. Because at this point, this team was constructed with names and only names trying to draw fans. And you seen it didn't work. And it was hard because you had square pegs trying to get into round holes, and it's just not working out. And Tom Gores has to be one of the worst owners ever because he has no idea what the hell he's doing. He has no clue. I really think he's trying to build this thing up with enough of a revenue base to turn around and just sell it in 5 or 6 years. And he has no clue how to do it. I don't think he understands if you just win, you put a winning product, your stadium will sell out. Being an owner is not that hard. All you have to do is just pony up money to get a winner. That's it. Just build a winner and your stadium fills up, your gear and your merchandise sells, and everything is great, and you can roll around in $100 bills that you're making from what comes in off the freaking admissions of people who are buying your shit and showing up and sitting in your seats.
Great podcast. This was a good podcast this week, cuz we got to try to extend these out to like 2-3 hours. What's cooking this next week? What do you think? I think maybe next week we're going to do the draft show.
Yeah, you know what?
It's time to geek out on the draft.
We have to touch on the NFL because I feel like that's been the bastard child. He might be the elephant in the room that it's like it's there and we want to get to it, but there's been other things that have been going on have kind of prevented us from it. So I think so maybe NFL next week. All
right, NFL heavy next week. Hit on our Lions. I think it's like one of those things where you like pick at a scab. The Lions are like my scab that you kind of got to pay attention to and pick at it a little bit and things like that. But I don't know. I'm just not I'm not in that mindset yet to get my hope up for the Lions. But it's a new season, new players, new era. Maybe it's time, like I said, to hit on the draft, and I look forward to doing that maybe next week. For my cousin Adam Strozinski, the Jock, I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Thanks to all the guests that came on our show. Thanks to everyone out there that's been listening and downloading our podcast on iTunes and Podomatic. Check with us often on Twitter at Detroit Podcast. We are the premier podcast in Detroit. Look us up, find us, interact with us on Twitter at Detroit Podcast. Take care, everyone. See you next week. We're out.
Go Wings. No! Oh my God, did you just say that? Like this was the greatest thing ever. Bears are on. I'm a man of the people.